W. I got about as much water in here as I used to drink of vodka, and about as much coffee when I first came in, just so I don't spill it. My name's Dave, and I'm an alcoholic. My home group is Stepping Stones. We're an incredible, dynamic group. We meet on Wednesdays and Saturday nights. There's enthusiasm in that group. If you're new, come and check us out. It is the most exciting group to be a part of. I love I'm generally always there on Wednesday nights. I don't always make it Saturday nights, but there's a lot of enthusiasm. If you don't believe me, check out our hospitality suite in room 3029. My sober date is January 3rd, 2003. And so I just recently celebrated 20 years. And I've never been, thank you, I have never been as excited about Alcoholics Anonymous as I am now. At 20 years sober, I got home from my medallion, and I just thought to myself, wow, Alcoholics Anonymous is an amazing place, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. Alcoholics Anonymous, the big book, the steps, my sponsor, a God as I understand him, have brought me to a place that I never dreamed of. And I'm so grateful for that. On January 1st of 2003, I wanted to not drink that year. I decided I'm not going to drink. And I'm going to go to any lengths to do it. So I read somewhere that if you fill a bathtub full of grapes and fill it with water and sit in the water, you won't drink that year. So off to the grocery store I ran, and I bought all these grapes, and I sat and I poured them into this bathtub. And I filled it up with water, and I sat in there for about 5 minutes shaking. Just shaking and shivering. I had the dry heaves. I had drinking the night before. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. And for some strange reason, I got out of that bathtub, got dried off, went and got a 26er of vodka and drank it. You see, I am completely powerless over alcohol. No matter what my wish, desire, choice, I can't stop drinking. And no matter what my desire, wish is, I can't stay stopped. I'm screwed, and I don't know what to do. And so for me, the only thing was for me to do was to enter myself into a detox, because in the detox is where I can be separated from alcohol. And that's the beautiful thing about a detox, is that it keeps me away from alcohol. And if I stay in that detox long enough, I won't drink unless I take off from it. You see, a detox is going to keep me sober, and I'm going to stay sober there, and I'm not going to drink, and I'm not going to drink, and I'm not going to drink. The problem is that I'll leave. And when I leave, suddenly that thought comes that somehow I can drink like a regular person, and I'll take a drink. I'm a person who needs the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous in order to maintain sobriety. I'm an alcoholic that needs this not just to stay sober, and I hope that you've learned in my story that it's not just about sobriety, but it's about living life. Because when I first came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought it was about not drinking, and I wasn't going to drink. And I'm not going to drink, and I'm going to do anything not to drink, just like I had done when I went into that bathtub. But you see, that doesn't work. I don't have the ability to stay stopped. In 1998, I had come home from a drunken stupor, and this goes to the resentment part of my story. I had a huge resentment against my father. And my father when I came home, I showed up late. It's a long story. I'm not going to get into it, but I was supposed to be home at 12 o'clock, and I came home at 2 o'clock. My dad came down the stairs, started yelling at me for being late. He was going to ground me, and I couldn't take that. And the resentment I had built up and built up and built up. And I grabbed a hold of my dad, and I pulled him down the stairs. And the rest is a blackout. I don't know what I did. I don't know what happened. And the next thing I remember is my mom standing at the top of the stairs saying, "How can you do this to our family? How can you do this to our family?" The next morning I woke up in our house. It was like a tornado had roared through it. I had broken windows. I had broken furniture. The phone was ringing. I didn't want to answer the phone. I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to be by myself. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. The phone kept ringing. The phone kept ringing. And I'm from London, Ontario, and it was St. Joseph's Hospital calling. And it was my mom. She had been rushed to emergency. She had gone into a panic attack. And I needed to get to the hospital right away. My mom had passed away by the time I had got there, and I didn't make it. Now, that's a tragic story. But the reality of my alcoholism is I decided that I'm not going to drink anymore. And I'm going to put myself into AA. And so the delusional thinking that I have about Alcoholics Anonymous is that I can walk into an AA meeting and not drink, and then leave that meeting and stay sober. So I had this desire, this wish, this burning desire to not drink because I knew there was something wrong with me. And I went to that meeting, and after the meeting, I drank again. And the weeks following was my mom's funeral. And I had made a decision that I'm not going to drink, and I'd taken a bottle of beer. I cracked open the beer and I drank it, and I'd say, this is my last bottle of beer, I'm never going to drink again. And I'd go off to the funeral home, and I'd put it in my mom's casket and tell her that I love her and that I'm not going to drink anymore. And after that, I'd drink. You see, I don't have the ability to stay stopped. I have the burning desire to stop, but I don't have the ability to stay stopped. I can't manage the decision to stay stopped. So off I went, another trip to the funeral home and another trip to the funeral home. And for the rest of the years leading up to 2003, I was a daily drinker, and I was a daily drinker before that. Alcoholism is cunning, baffling, and powerful, and I don't know how to handle it, and I don't know what to do, and how am I supposed to do this thing? I think I'm just supposed to go to meetings and sit there and get sober, and I can't even get to a meeting. As soon as I walk to a meeting, a guy reaches out to shake my hand, and I want nothing to do with him. I go off to the bar, and I start drinking. So I enter that detox, and I was supposed to go in for 30 days. And I love that line, do you want what we have? My detox was in Owen Sound, and it's a beautiful detox. If you ever got a detox, go to Owen Sound. It's like a Hilton hotel. It's so clean. And beside it was this house. It was called the G&B house. And there were these guys that were outside of the G&B house. They were sober. They were playing basketball. They were playing football. There was a guy under a tree reading. And I sat in that detox, and there's these guys with their heads between their knees, just like me, not wanting to go on, filled with guilt, remorse, and shame. I wanted what they had. I wanted just a little bit of happiness and joy, a little bit of peace of mind. And I decided to enter myself into the long-term treatment of the G&B house for 9 months. And there I went to a lot of meetings. And there I learned a lot about relapse prevention. There I learned a lot about what to do not to drink. And it was great. And one of the greatest things that I learned that was brought to me in Alcoholics Anonymous there was Sermon on the Mount. And I started reading Sermon on the Mount constantly. And I read it like it was my Bible. And I studied it on Sundays. I didn't have a sponsor. I didn't have anything. I was just doing anything I could to not drink. They told me to pray, so I prayed. They told me to show up to the meetings early, so I showed up to the meetings early and helped set up. And I did those things, but it's not enough. Because you see, I get irritable, restless, and discontent because of these resentments and fears that we're going to talk about. I don't feel comfortable in my own skin. I don't like sobriety. And I wonder why. I don't know what's going on with me. I think this is a thing that I'm not going to drink. And I didn't see that I don't have the choice not to drink, and I have a choice but to go after sobriety. And I did that. And I did everything I possibly could. I'm not going to go through the whole story and everything in it and all the bits and pieces of it, but I learned to love sobriety, and I kept coming back, and the way that I did that was by keep coming back, and I participated in a home group. I joined big book studies. I did everything I possibly could, and at 8 years sober, I was ready to put a gun to my head. I was riddled with resentments and fears. I'd go to my home group. Have you ever had a resentment in your home group? Man, I had resentment every single person. And there's a guy in my home group who says the same thing every week. Damn! And I've got it memorized off my heart what he's going to say, and I'm ready to kill him, and I can't take AA anymore. I want to leave, but I know I can't leave. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love my home group, and I love all the sponsors that I've ever had. It's the greatest place, let me tell you that. But you got to admit, sometimes it drives you crazy. So at 8 years sober, I was ready to put a gun to my head. And I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know who to reach out to. My resentments, my fears, my self-pity had built up. You see, before I started drinking, I lived in a delusional world. Before I started drinking, I lived in full flight from reality. I was a guy, I like baths. I would sit in my bathtub at home and interview myself, not for 5 minutes, but for a half an hour to 45 minutes. You see, what do you think, Dave? Well, this is what I think. And I'd put on a big smile, and I never did well in school because I was always in imagination. I was always off thinking about myself. I don't remember anything about school. And I didn't see that I was self-centered. I didn't know I was self-centered. I didn't know anything about this. I just thought about myself. I thought it was the normal thing to do. I thought it's okay to think about yourself all the time. I never thought of others. But I did think very, very much about trying to be a good person. And I just couldn't do it. I don't know why. I don't know why I robbed and I steal from the corner store of the guy who I walked in and befriended him and then robbed his chocolate bars. I don't know why I stole from the purse of the woman who lived next to me after I looked after her cat and cut her grass. No matter what I did to try to change, I couldn't even change. Lack of power is my dilemma. And it's not just with alcohol. It's with me. I'm completely powerless. I need to find a power greater than myself. And so through that first 8 years of sobriety, I sat in selfishness and self-centeredness, but I participated in AA as best I could. I shook hands. I put chairs away. I was of service. I did those things. Those things are important. Being at my home group every Monday and Thursday, it was important for me to be there. I befriended people and I got to know people. And when I hit that depression and I felt suicidal and I wanted to kill myself, I had people that I could reach out to that weren't going to judge me. Because no matter what you think, you're not going to get judged in Alcoholics Anonymous because people have been through that. And some people had suggestions for me to go see a doctor, which I did. Some had suggestions to do this, which I did. Some did this. They all had varying degrees of help. And I phoned a man, and I told him what was going on, and he said, let me take you through the big book. Let me take you through the 12 steps, and let's see what happens. And that man drove from Barrie to Toronto every week, and we went through the book, and we took the steps. And man, did I have a spiritual experience. I woke up. I came alive. I started loving my life. I started loving Alcoholics Anonymous. I started loving it. You see, I think it's important. I believe in the power of the big book, and I believe in the power of knee-to-knee sponsorship. I believe that you will change and have a psychic change as a result of taking the steps that are outlined in the big book. It changed my life. And it wasn't just the 4th step, it was the 9th step. And it's the continuous of living in 11 and 12. You see, that resentment I had against my father stuck with me all my life. I couldn't get rid of it. And when I was in treatment, they had me do this exercise where I closed my eyes and picture my dad. And I'd sit there across from the counselor and close my eyes. And I couldn't picture anything. I saw nothing. I saw an angry man. I saw a man who didn't love me. I saw a man who I couldn't measure up to what he wanted me to be. I saw a man who sports was big in my family, and you gotta dig, get in those corners, go. You gotta hustle. I never thought he loved me. And that night when he came home, I took all that anger out and all that frustration out. I never knew. So when I get to this fourth step and I put my dad down, which I had done many a times before, many times before, and no result. You see, I didn't go into the fourth step with a spirit. You see, I went into my fourth step with everything that I know. And I'm going to prove that I'm right on those resentments. No wonder I could never get rid of them, because I am going to be right, and this is the way it is, and this is my life. And as I went through those steps, the one thing that came up and that kept running in through my head is set aside your old ideas. Let go of the ideas. And I had to let go of those burning ideas of my dad in my head. You're not good enough. You can't make it. You disgrace us. You do this, you do that. All these negative connotations. What am I going to do with this? And these thoughts, I'm riddled with them. Resentments. It's like watching Saturday night hockey. And you see this check into the corner. And this body check is powerful and it's strong. The guy's head goes back, boom, against the wall, against the glass. He dislocates his shoulder. He's down on the ice and he's injured. The commentators go, wow, can you believe that? Look at that. Let's look at that again. And then you look at that over, that replay of that over. The replay of that hit. The replay of his head snapping back. And then they say, let's look at it from another angle. And then you look at it from that other angle. And then they're about to go to a commercial break and they say, hold on. Let's look at this play one more time. You see, that's what it was like for me, that resentment, those ideas that I ingrained in my head kept going over and over and over and over again. I'd wake up in the middle of the morning and play that tape over. I'd play it over again that I'm no good, I can't make it, I'm terrible, I'm useless. I got to surrender to my old ideas. And I couldn't change. Lack of power is my dilemma. I couldn't change this on my own. I needed God's help. And where is God amongst all this? I don't even know. I'm going to meetings and I'm talking about God. And I'm talking about a higher power. And I can't find it. And it was when I got through those steps that I went and I started having a true relationship with God. And in the third column, I realized that everything my dad had been saying was me, and it wasn't my dad. It was a total delusion. My dad loved me. He did everything to be the best father he could. I saw that in the third column, and I woke up. And when it came time for me to do my amends, I had to drive to London to go to his cemetery. My sponsor drove me down there. And I couldn't find his grave, and I had a long letter written of all the wrongs I had done to him. And as I had that letter in my hand, I realized that the wrongs, you see, sometimes the wrong is the wrong judgment. I had a wrong judgment against my father. Just like I had a wrong judgment against the people in my home group. Just like those wrong judgments keep me a prisoner of myself. And I read that letter, but that letter didn't really mean anything. Because I finally got free. That my dad loved me and that the ideas that I was holding on to were my ideas about myself, which weren't true. The reality is that my dad worked hard to make me, to provide for me the best that he could. My dad worked hard for me to teach me sports. He couldn't help that I was an alcoholic. And it's funny, this whole idea of resentments, I'm never free of the resentments. You see, those old ideas come up again. And see, today, I'm so grateful that I had this topic because I realized as I was doing this, as I was thinking about what I was going to say today, how much I had been asleep lately and how much I had been sleepwalking, dreaming I'm awake. And how important it is for me to do that nightly inventory and that morning meditation and then continue with a relationship with God. See, Alcoholics Anonymous, the sponsors I've had, my home group, the one thing that they gave me is the most important thing that I'll ever have, and that's a relationship with God today. And for that, I'm grateful. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. And now for our second panelist from the Birds of a Feather in Toronto, Ontario, please welcome Jen F.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jen. I'm an alcoholic. Yes, I'm a member of Birds of a Feather here in Toronto. And if you're willing to go to any lengths, we meet at 11 a.m. on a Sunday. So I am extremely honored and grateful to be able to speak about Step 4 and 5. Joanna's on my new resentment list after seeing the size of the room. But if somebody had told me that writing down my deepest fears, every mistake I've ever made, every horrible thought I've ever had, and every person I've ever slept with, and that I would be happy and thrilled to death about it by the end of telling someone else about it, I would have called them something a lot less polite than a liar. The relationship that I've built with my sponsor and with a higher power that I understand that I don't need to justify or define to anybody has been a defining, character-changing spiritual experience for me. I remember finishing, I went to CAMH Detox, also pretty nice, gotta say. And then onward to Renaissance, which is another exercise of, are you willing to go to any lengths and live in a house with 12 other women, also in early sobriety? It's a lot. But I did learn what I needed to learn there, so thank you for that. But I was there over Christmas and New Year's of 2019. My sober date is November 22nd, 2019. So for those of you who can do math, I was like 3 months sober when COVID hit. It's good for my ego, though. Only picking up 3 chips. I didn't get any more claps after that. My 1-year medallion was online. My ego, that's good. But we went to a Christmas gratitude meeting at the Friendly Group, and this woman just bounced over to us. And she was dancing around and talking in funny voices, and I was like, this is an AA group, right? Because she does not seem like a sober person, but these guys have gratitude. They have happiness, and they are an aptly named group. Friendly Group is amazing. And I knew from the moment I met her, this woman needs to be my sponsor, and I honestly felt like a kid in junior high, like asking someone to be my date. My sisters at Renaissance were like, you have to ask her before you graduate. You cannot leave this place without her being your sponsor. And I think I kind of spat it at her. And she's like, I've been waiting for you to ask me for like 2 weeks, but I'm glad that you got there eventually. And as soon as I left Renaissance, she invited me to her home, and we just sat and had maybe a 2-hour conversation. And she stuck some sneaky questions in there. And at the end, she shook my hand and said, congratulations, you're done 1, 2, and 3. Here's the paperwork for 4. We launch, the book says. And she showed me a couple of sheets, and I said, can I write this out on my own papers? And she said, no. Those boxes are that size for a reason. And the boxes are small. And at first I was looking forward. I was like, the first column is just names. That's a hit list. I have been thinking about this hit list for years. I am prepared. And the second column is what they did. I could write you a novel about each and every one. And the boxes are that size for a reason. I was forced to distill my resentments down to really think about why this person deserved to be on this list. And before I even started it, she was very gentle, and she kept it simple for me, which is really good for a complicated person, like as we all are. She said, this is a fact-finding mission, not a fault-finding mission. And in my brain, I translated that to lawyer up your brain. The jury doesn't care about your feelings. They care about what happened. Think about it clearly. Make it fit in the box. If you can make it fit in the box, it's fair game. She also said fearless and thorough. And I would have thought that I was a fearless person. I didn't think I had a lot of fear, but anybody who's done the fourth will know that it gets revealed that we may be a little more fearful than we thought we were. She also, when I was spiraling, reminded me to treat myself as a compassionate friend, like a friend that you actually like. When they're telling you their troubles, you listen, not always to solve the problem, but sometimes just to listen. After who the person was and what they did, were a series of check marks. And that went by pretty quickly, but in the simple act of checking these boxes over and over again, patterns started to reveal themselves. Those patterns, those check marks told me who I was. It told me I was a person that had a lot of pride. It told me a person who had a lot of fear. It told me I was a person who was selfish. And that was an ugly look in the mirror. That was an exercise in being willing to go to any lengths. In the last column, where I had to analyze my part, I had the incredible opportunity to see how I'd affected other people. And for a lot of us women in the room, sometimes it's really hard to see the part that you played in some things. And what I do with my sponsees is remind them that we are never victim blaming when we look at the things that happen to us, but we do look at choices that we make that put us in danger. I did not anticipate the freedom that would come from looking at that honestly. I would love to say that I also launched into my fifth, but as I said, I wrote my fourth in about a week, and then COVID hit. And my sponsor is an older lady. We didn't really know how to go forward, and I sat on my fourth with all of this stuff that I just dug up for over a month. 0 out of 5 stars. I do not recommend this. Do not do this to yourselves. I went insane. I tore down the walls in my house and remodeled. I rent this place. Didn't ask permission either. Wasn't that far into the steps yet. I painted. I realized the problem was my environment. This was my this was my trigger prison. This is where I drank all the time. Like, I had to change this place. I rearranged the furniture. I groomed my cats. I watched a lot of TV. I read self-help books. I had a roommate at the time who generously told me that he had a bottle of whiskey in his closet, and should I get rid of it? And in my egotism said, no, it's fine. I'll be fine. And he went out one day, and I poured that bottle of whiskey. I stared at that glass for 3 days. And finally called my sponsor, and she's like, would you like to continue doing the steps maybe? I was like, yeah, please. I think that might be a good idea. I'm going insane. So it was an interesting step in willingness to do a step 5 over the phone, especially because that was the time I was given permission to feel my feelings. During the writing process, not so much, but feelings were felt during 5. And it was an interesting experience to have my higher power there to comfort me rather than a sponsor to give me a hug. It was an experience that I didn't expect to not feel alone, even though I was alone in my apartment. And over the course of 16 hours, broken up into 4 conversations, 4 4-hour conversations, we talked about everything I had ever thought, said, or done, in sometimes excruciating detail. And she was quite gentle. She would once in a while ask questions. And sometimes she would look at a whole page, because I scanned it to her so she could read along with me. And sometimes she would look at whole pages and go, nope, we're not talking about that. She's like, your whole problem, this entire page is all ideologies. This stuff you can't control. You have fear and control issues. You have ego issues. Mystery solved. Some of them flowed out easily. Some of them I was ready to talk about, and I've been ready to talk about forever. And some choked at the throat. Sidebar, my first AA meeting was in CAMH, in a meeting of 3 people, 2 of which were the people who came in to have the meeting with me. There's nowhere to hide in a meeting that small. And that was the first time I said, my name is Jen, and I'm an alcoholic, and I've heard people share that this is like some huge cathartic experience, and it's beautiful. That was not my experience. I choked on that. I was not ready. It was the first time I had been honest with myself, let alone anybody else. And, you know, at Renaissance, they used to say, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's what 4 and 5 can be. It was an ugly look in the mirror for me. I don't understand fully what the ancient wisdom is in the act of sharing your private experience with another person and with a power greater than yourself that you understand. But it's a lot older than AA. But they've brought it in here, and it is. There are a few things I would call sacred, but the relationship between a sponsor and a sponsee is sacred to me. My sponsor was the first person I ever let really know me. And it was one of the first times it ever hit home that I really am not alone. I let someone know me and they did not run. And it's an honor anytime I receive a 5th. I know how hard it is to write a 4th. And any woman that comes to me to share her 5th, I am honored by. And it's an incredible experience to be able to receive it without carrying it myself. As I told my sponsor about some of the things, it kind of felt like taking rocks out of a backpack. I did not realize what I carried. Some of it I did, but some of it really came out of left field. By the end of the 16 hours, broken into 4 conversations, I had met myself. And I had met a person who was afraid and egotistical and controlling, and like, I now have to make friends with this person. And it wasn't until a lot later than the 4th and the 5th that I realized that I am not the voice in my head. I am the thing that observes it. Because I spent a lot of time personifying my alcoholism. Like, it's a terrible roommate. And she's loud some days more than others, and she breaks things, and she really messes up the place. And she demands to be heard, and I can make friends with her. And, you know, like, there's the old AA saying of, like, oh, well, you're in these rooms, your addiction or your alcoholism is in the parking lot doing push-ups. Like, mine was in the front row taking notes. Like, she learns. She's like the raptors from Jurassic Park. She's learning. And she would try and find little side doors, you know, when I would try to pray, and that's a learned skill. If you don't feel like you're good at praying or meditating, don't worry. It's a learned skill. It gets better with practice, because in the beginning I'd be like, I know I'm not supposed to pray for myself, but if you could also kind of give me this thing, that'd be great. And I have to catch myself. Like, I found love and compassion for her. From those check marks and those boxes, I learned what drives me. I learned what my patterns are. I learned how to circumvent some habits. And after 5, when I know what all my I have a better idea of what all my character defects are, it was extremely frustrating several months after that, because I would just wave at opportunities as they passed by to be a spiritual giant. Like, I was just toddling around the world, blissfully unaware of how I was affecting other people or what I was doing, and wondering why these things keep happening to me. But now I know. Like, oh, people are maybe lashing back at me because I'm not being nice, or I'm being selfish, or I'm not listening when they're talking. And I remember getting off the phone at the end of the 16 hours and calling some girls that I was at Renaissance with. I think I was the first out of our little group to do the 5th, probably because of that really sneaky 1, 2, and 3 that was really brief. I really wish would have been longer, because you got to just be ready to do it. But I remember calling my friend, and I was like, you have absolutely no idea. My entire world just changed. I had no idea it would happen that fast for me. I cannot make any promises that it's anybody else's experience, but for me, the entire world changed. The absolute greatest gift that this program has given me is changing the way that I see my own story. Like, I felt like a victim, but not a victim. I felt like I was wronged. And I think about the first time I did like an hour's talk at my home group a week before my 1-year medallion. It was very much in the what it was like. It was a lot in my personal history. I kind of trauma dumped on them, so I'm sorry, guys, if a couple of you are here. and how it's evolved now. Because things I used to see from my childhood, which was, I used to see it as cold or uncaring or harsh or very high expectations. Now I see as a standard of excellence and a work ethic that I needed to get through a thorough and fearless fourth step. Having the courage to go there. My sponsor did put a little bit of healthy fear in me. She's like, the reason, and she's 40 years sober. And for the most part, she was very gentle. She was. I picked an old-timer because I thought she was going to kick my ass, and she didn't. She was very kind, but she did put a little bit of healthy fear in me in saying that most of the relapses that she's seen are from an in-thorough 4 and 5. So if you haven't done it yet, looking in those dark little corners is worth it. You learn a lot from those dark little corners. It's incredibly freeing to look from those dark little corners. And there's my favorite line in the entire big book, and this is like I think it's a big statement, but my favorite line in the entire big book relates to this topic. And it's on page 124, and it says, cling to the thought that in God's hands, your dark past is the greatest asset that you have, the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avoid death and misery for them. I didn't get that line until I received a fifth from another woman. And I was able to tell her parts of my story that I swear to God were going to go to my grave. Only my sponsor would ever know. And now I speak about it freely with women. It is how I connect to other women. We can connect through our pain. Like the slogan, "You're no longer alone," it still chokes me up. Like I'm 3.5 years sober, and it still chokes me up because, like, where else are people like us welcome? Like, I was not getting invited back to many places, guys. And people here are happy to see me, and I'm happy to see others, and seeing them struggle just makes me feel closer to them, and I can be like, listen, I've been there. Like, I remember showing my sex inventory to my sponsor, and she's an elderly lady, and she's basically a nun. And she goes to Catholic Mass every day, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I couldn't even look her in the face when I showed her this stack. And she goes, oh, that's like half of mine. I clutched my pearls. I was like, oh my God. And it's true. It's like the macabre. I thought I had a dark sense of humor before coming to AA, but like the truth is this joy comes from people who have walked through hell and survived it. And we have joy. Like this program says, it promises that you're going to be happy, joyous, and free. Right? All big promises in and of themselves. Happy and joyous, I don't know, like every day? Like I don't want to drink that Kool-Aid. I don't trust those people. But some people are, and I envy them. I want what they have. But the most seemingly unattainable promise seems to be freedom. And that is the one that works for every single one of us. Every single day. We are free. We don't have to drink anymore. We don't have to solve our problems by running from them. We don't have to solve our problems by numbing them. We can face them with some clarity. I mean, that clarity comes from looking what we've done and who we've been and deciding I don't want to be that person anymore and I have a choice not to be. Like, that is amazing. That's an incredible thing. And I'm going to wrap up a little bit early, but I share this story every single time I talk. Sorry, guys who've heard me speak before, especially the birds. There is an anthropologist. Her name is Margaret Mead. She's a scientist, and she was asked once, what is the earliest sign of civilization? Not just human beings, but what makes us civilized? And everybody's sort of expecting her to say some sort of stone tool or a fishing hook. And she says it is a broken femur that has healed. Like, that's the bone in your leg. And you cannot survive an injury like that without outside assistance. So this skeleton broke their leg, this person broke their leg, and somebody else probably dragged them to safety and protected them from animals and brought them food and brought them water until they could walk themselves. And I think that is such an incredible metaphor for what we do here. We take people who are broken, like every single person here has earned this seat, and we love them until they can love themselves. And we teach them how to live because somebody taught us how to live. Somebody at Stepping Stones actually really made the penny drop for me once when they were like, at the very beginning of your very first meeting, you've already done an act of service, because we have a moment of silence for the still suffering alcoholic inside and outside of these rooms. And selfish alcoholic that I am, it did not occur to me that you guys were here like every single night for years before I showed up. And that moment of silence was for me too, you know? So if you ever think you're not doing enough service, your butt in that seat is service. That moment of silence that we do at the beginning of every single meeting before we do the Serenity Prayer is an act of service, because some of you guys did that for me before I came here. So for that, I say thank you, and thank you for letting me speak here.